Good evening, Meenakshi.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you for the 53rd event of Indian Networker and the 71st episode of Jam with Sam.
Thank you for inviting me.
Most welcome. So tell us a brief about yourself, your childhood. You're a Mumbai girl. Tell us about it.
I had a very happy childhood. I grew up I've lived my whole life in Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz?
We lived in a small atoll, and we had huge gardens in the front and the back. And I just had an insanely happy time. And I remember being so heartbroken when I think it was in the 4th standard, when we moved to an apartment. And I lost all my friends, and I just never forgave my parents. because because there was such an openness, and me and my sister were always, I think we were kind of cute when we were tiny, so we were always being borrowed by the neighbors. So my mother always had to go hunting now. Oh, she's in your house now. Somebody else took her.
Okay.
So actually I think kids in general are very, they absorb things like sponges. So I could speak like 5-6 languages quite easily because we had Maharashtrian neighbors and Mallus, and so I would speak, my mother tongue is Konkani, then I would speak English, I would speak Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Malayalam. I knew dozens of Malayalam songs.
Oh, God.
I'm just like completely handicapped now from, living in a flat. And I just miss that. And I think the funny thing is, so it was just also an open kind of house. So we had these huge gardens at the front and back. And this really carbon dates me, but we lived right here in Santa Cruz East, and just right behind the house. So it was actually close to what technically now is the highway. But it used to be just a kind of silly path. I mean, it was a rasta going somewhere. But I distinctly remember when I was very tiny, my sister and I would just stand like that because there were huge, huge flocks of shepherds and sheep that would come from Gujarat. I distinctly, because it was a huge meadow.
Oh, wow.
All of this area, till the airport. The airport was some side shed at, I think, near military camp. There was a little pokey thing with a little hangar. My dad was an Indian and so he used to observe all these things. Okay. But the whole area was a huge meadow. There was just grass. So these shepherds would come traveling, on foot with their flocks. And then, we would look like, so to identify, because all sheep sillily look alike. So I think they would put at the back of their necks, they would put like purple color, somebody had green color, somebody had blue color, so they could identify their sheep. So we used to stand in the middle and they used to be really stinky. And I just have such powerful memories, and I just feel we've lost so much from living in a building.
So actually the child which was there, especially with the Ganpati and all that, there's a lot of cohesiveness over there.
Yes,
which
we
was
had
like
gangs.
It's
and the other thing that was really fun for me is my mother comes from Dharwad, so every year on the May holidays we used to go there, and that was like high point of my existence, I have to say, because so dad used to be in Indian Airlines, so we used to fly to Belgaum, we used to take a bus, and then my high point of the whole trip, we used to take a tanga home. From the station. And my sister and I would so we used to have this little kind of steel trunk. These old hold all, this really carbon dates maybe, kind of. So my sister and I would sit in the front and we say, hey, ghode ko nahi marne ka. And first thing we do is grab his whip because we hated it that they would whip the animals. We thought it's so appalling. So, and then, they'd keep the grass in the front for the horse to eat, and we'd sit on that, and we just have very strong memories. And lots of mango trees everywhere. We were like permanently in the mango trees. And there was a well behind the house, and all these kingfishers flashing through,
Real kingfishers?
Real kingfishers, and not the beery ones. Okay. But yeah, I have and I think it's, I think I'm very grateful for that part of my childhood as well, because I think a lot of kids that grow up in the cities, I think they have very, very far more limited lives because they grow up here. And I didn't grow up in a town. I just visited, but May holidays was every year, 1 month at least. For example, my grandmother would wake up at 4:30 and she would dust a area in front of the house and spread cow dung and make this beautiful rangoli. And if you tell a kid now, like, it's like, and actually, I mean, I'm not really good with science and stuff, but it's supposed to be antiseptic. It also keeps the mud down. It keeps insects at bay. And just the fundamental idea of making something so beautiful as a rangoli tea house, kind of welcoming the gods, welcoming guests. But it was never made from a powder. It was made of rice flour. So that ants and tiny insects, if God is giving us to eat, we should look for that philosophy. And it's such a simple thing of beauty and very unschooled. You didn't go to school and university to learn these things. These are just so much, just small and sweet gestures that are part of our ethos. And that there would be this at the door, we would have on either side, one side had like a brass cup with tiny coins, 5 paisa, 10 paisa, which was quite decent in those days. And the other side, you had a big kind of ghoni chil, what is it, like a big sack of either kurmura or rice. So if anyone came to the house to beg, you could never send them empty-handed. You had to give them to eat, or you would give them a coin. And it was just always there. You always filled it up and kept it there because somebody might come and you can't send them away. And I think those are just something so beautiful about what India teaches you. And I feel, I don't know if Indian kids in cities grow up with that kind of, you ask a kid, where does milk come from? Oh, from a bottle or a packet. You say, no, it comes from a cow. They say, you know, it's cringing for them because the only cows they ever see are eating garbage outside of street corners, right? Eating complete shit that they're throwing away. And that's what the cows are eating. And that is the milk we're drinking, whether you like it or not. That is what we're drinking. So it's just not a great childhood that we are able to give our kids. Or we can, if we choose to have this, I think, connect with a different India, which is out there, and we don't always make the effort to reach it. I think that was very enriching for me. Sorry to give you a very long answer, but you asked for it.
It's a bird's eye, there's a shepherd's eye view over there.
Yes.
And which school did you go to?
St. Teresa's.
St. Teresa's, Santa Cruz. Yeah. Okay, fine, fantastic. So you studied at St. Xavier's, and you did a BA in economics.
Yeah.
What made you change from that into journalism into KC College? I mean, it's two different things over there.
Does anyone do anything with their life that they had to, any connection with what they studied? I don't know. Please raise your hands. Anyone who studied and continued doing that for 40 or 50?
Yeah, no choice.
Well, you got fuss out.
Doctor also had no choice. He had no choice. Dr. Shweta also.
Yeah, doctors are excluded. You're like, track pe hai. But I think, I don't actually regret it. I think it enriches you insanely, especially the younger generation. Nobody knows what they want to do, and I think that's fantastic because then you learn many things. And I think it enriches you. I mean, why should I not study? I didn't, but you know, why can't an economist study architecture or, I don't know, gardening or whatever, astronomy? It's thrilling to dabble in different things because all of these things enrich you. I don't think anything's a waste. Like I taught journalism for many years at XIC, the Xavier Institute of Communications. And then somewhere I said, oh, hello, ma'am. Oh my God, now where did I, because I've been teaching at 5-6 institutes, so I never remember which batch where. And when they say hello, ma'am, I say, oh my God, now they're going to ask. I can't remember their names because they all remember like 1 or 3 professors, but they were like class of 60, 80 students, and it was like very difficult to remember all their names. But I think then they'll feel apologetic. Oh God, ma'am, you know, I'm doing fashion journalism now. They're kind of embarrassed. And I'm saying, well, why would you be embarrassed? Because journalism is basically communication. It teaches you to think clearly and to write clearly and to communicate or to speak clearly. So why would I be embarrassed if you did gardening? I mean, I don't care. It's just, it gives you a skill for life. You might learn how to, you know, propose to someone nicely or effectively, or I don't know, you know, write a birthday card poetically. It's to communicate. Yes, so yes. I always tell them it's silly to ever be embarrassed. You just learn the skill and you can use it for whatever you like.
So fun time. What's the weirdest thing you've seen in someone else's house?
There was a family I was living with in Delhi for a short while, and I think when I was going away, he said, oh, we have to celebrate, and then he pulled out a bottle of looking very shady. It looked like some urine-y, yellowish, horrible color, and I said, what is it? And he said, snake wine, and I said, oh, like
wine?
what? And he knows I'm vegetarian, and I said, like, what is snake wine? And he said, well, I don't know if you want to hear it, but they kind of, I think it was from Korea. And there's a wine that's stewing in some kind of other wine and gives it a flavor. And I said, you know, Mubarak ho, you just finished the bottle by yourself. Don't open it while I'm around. And there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was some slithery thing at the bottom that was stewing away.
Stewing over there. So actually, snakes are there inside. Huh? Actual snakes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Should I ask Chaitali? You know, she'll know more about that. China or Korea? Okay.
I'm sure. That's why he popped it in a big occasion, and I said.
So, if you could trade lives with someone for a day, who would it be and why?
There was this lovely, lovely woman I met once, and I never forgot. So I think the life in journalism has just been a very thrilling experience because every day you meet somebody really exciting, and you go and meet, you know, go to all kinds of places. You get to ask all kinds of questions to people. So you learn so much every day because if you're doing an interview of somebody tomorrow, oh my God, you have to really do homework. So you learn such a lot in a very fun way. And one of the fun things I did was, Actually, I was very broke and I had no job and I had no money. So somehow I piled on to, there was a Kerala Film Festival, I'm very fond of movies. And I have a cousin, a friend who lived in Kerala, and he said, yeah, you just come and stay with me and you do cover the festival so you'll get some money, but also have some fun. But he sent me to Trishur because there was a woman that I interviewed who was so interesting. Her name is Nibha Nambudri, and she is one of India's 2 lady mahouts. And yeah, she tames elephants. So she actually studied zoology, but this is her profession, and I think the only other woman is someone from Assam, a woman I mean. And she just had a really fun job, but I think the thing with her is she said, I don't like to be a mahout because in order to be an effective mahout, you have to be really tough and tell the elephant who's boss. So you have to really be, nasty, and there's this ankush, this pointy, like a dagger, which you're poking and kicking his ear with this side or that side, or being really quite disrespectful, if not downright cruel. The way, so I spent a whole day with him in the forest in a place called Kodunadu Forest outside Trishur, and unhesitatingly, I would rather. So we'd spend time with a lot of baby elephants who'd been rescued. So it also tells you how cruel human beings are, because we're. So they kind of dig this massive hole to catch elephants. They dig a massive pit in the jungle and fill it up with leaves so they can't tell. And then the babies fall into it and they're crying and they're like they're starving. And then they kind of rescue them. So then they put up in something called a kraal. And then, so I was like feeling so bad. So one of them was an orphan. I think the parents died or was separated. So there was this really it was such a baby. It was sweet with little hair on his head, very cute fellow. So I was patting him and then he was like, they're like, they really need their mummies. So he kind of grabbed my hand and he wouldn't let go. He tried to suck my hand because actually we had been feeding with a giant milk bottle and he wouldn't let go. And he was really strong. This guy said, you have to be careful because they'll wrench your arm off. They don't realize they're just being playful, but they actually have tremendous power. But it also alerted me how incredibly cruel actually getting to know elephants are, because actually they're wild animals. The sound of an approaching elephant is heartbreaking. It's a sound of chains being dragged because it's chains, its feet are all in iron chains, and I have this Trishur Puram with 100 elephants. But the whole thing's just bloody cruel. So hard to enjoy, although it seems cutie on the surface, but there's bestiality behind it that allows it to be so cute on the surface.
What is the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them the first time?
I think the eyes, and whether the eyes are alive. I mean, by alive, I mean, having some life in them, I guess.
So if they're not alive, doctor will help them get alive over there. He's looking, wow, Okay. Who needs it over there? Okay, your professional life, you followed your passion.
Yeah.
You were assistant editor in Times of India for 15 years. Tell us about it. And how that helped you follow your passion?
So, funny things, small things in our life makes you take a very different direction. And when you look back, you think, really, it was from something so small and silly, but somehow your life went. So we just had a guy when I was in college who would come and do like a journalism workshop. I think it was like a week or something, and we really enjoyed ourselves, and we did interviews and stuff. And then he came back after I graduated, and I had a job in Indian Airlines, issuing tickets, ghastly. So, but the thing was, we had to wear these elegant silk uniforms like the air hostesses wore. So this is why I'm really comfortable wearing a sari, because most of my friends are like, who are you seeing today? Or where are you going? Like, it's a whole event because you're wearing a sari. Like, are you stupid to wear a sari otherwise? Because, especially in journalism, you have to be really active and jump into trains and in and out, and, your job is so demanding. You have to be really practical. But I've always felt a sari perfectly practical, but I would be really exceptional in being comfortable in a sari. And that actually came from I was like broken in properly at Indian Airlines. Like every day I had to wear a silk sari, and I tried to find 20 ways to weasel out. I said, no, but I'm still a trainee, baad mein karenge, this, that, and no excuses. And I wasn't even on counter, like I wasn't with like meeting the customers. But I hated it then, but I think I'm eternally grateful because I think it's something very special. I can't remember what you asked me. I've kind of meandered as usual. You were asking me about, what I like about my job. You asked me what I like about my job. I think I kind of answered you, but I think I think because you're forced to learn something new every day, and you do it because you want to. It's not like somebody, like nobody cares terribly. I don't know if the readers care terribly if an article is brilliant or it's good or it's decent. You know, you kind of flip, right? But it's just that if you want it to be really damn good, you'll make the effort, which XYZ might not. But so what I'm saying is it's essentially self-driven. Like the boss may be very okay with. So I've had wonderful bosses, but I think my standards were set by myself wanting standards so high, irrespective of what the boss wanted or needed or not. My own standards were like very demanding of myself.
How did you rise up in Times of India? I mean, how did you stick around for 15 years?
Yeah, that I can't believe it. I don't think I can forgive myself. Like POI, it's like, oh, evil empire we used to call it.
Evil.
Yeah.
It's being recorded,
huh?
It's being recorded.
Yeah, it is. It knows it is. So
okay.
I think it's come to. So yeah, I have to say, I think the tone was set the day one of the owners, we had a meeting, and then he said, he called us all our senior editors to a long table, and he said, I'm in the business of newspapers, and everything that you write in my newspaper, so he's telling journalists, okay, everything you write in my newspaper that doesn't bring me advertising revenue is a waste of my space, and don't you ever forget that. So I think, to tell journalists that, it kind of really set the tone. And I have to say that despite that, and despite what the ethos of that newspaper is, that it gave me a lot of space to flourish and do my own thing. And I wasn't really actually asked to be corrupt, so I'm eternally grateful because, they are the pioneers of something called MediaNet, where you can buy space and you just pay X amount of money and say lovely things about my wife or my husband or about my gallery, about my dog, about whatever you like. And that has kind of been the poison in the well that's made all of the media like that, more or less. So for a company like that, to give me the space to not ask me to be dishonest, I mean, I can't change the world, but I'm eternally grateful that I could have my own little space to do my own thing, and I wasn't asked to be corrupt, I wasn't forced to be corrupt, because either you do as they want or you get out, right? So despite that, if I could get away with, and then I really, so that's where I kind of discovered my other life. So I basically joined as a journalist, and I wrote reports, I wrote features, I wrote pompous editorials that no one read, which is really cool because anyway they were anonymous, so nobody knew who wrote it. But I think I had a really lovely break there because I had a scholarship. I was working in Paris for a year, and I think that experience totally transformed my life. I don't think I was ever the same person again. And so the whole course was conducted in French, and it was really tough. So in those days, for example, the Yugoslavian refugee crisis was a big thing.
Yeah,
so you would have, the program was so super. So every month you went to another country for reportage for 2 weeks on a different subject each time.
Wow.
Yeah. So from Europe, from Ireland to Cyprus, I've beaten up that continent. And each time, so we went there to do a journalistic project. So you would have access to all kinds of people that you wouldn't normally, if you went as a tourist, you do the museums or the bars or the restaurants or the galleries or the Eiffel Tower or whatever. But here, for example, when I went to Italy, I was interviewing people who were being tried in mafia cases.
Oh.
So I got to meet the judge who was trying these cases. And when the crime was switching really, really smart in those days, this was mid-90s, the mafia was changing to white-collar crime. So it's really boring to, pull out a gun and shoot somebody. Well, that's like the movies. That's like old-fashioned mafia. But what they would do is they'd get you to give them shares in your company. How boring to just shoot you and, have ketchup everywhere. So this is like ketchup-less next level. So they were getting really sophisticated. So they were moving much more insidiously into white-collar crime. And around that time I went, they were actually, they had a Witness Protection Act, which actually turned the cases around, where nobody will come and depose against whoever, you're half the Dawood and gang because you're so terrified. But they were putting in place a powerful witness protection law which protected witnesses, which would allow actually evidence to be presented. So you go to Italy and this is what you learn, other than of course you're going to Rome, and of course you're going to the museum, and of course you're going to the Colosseum, and of course you're going to the Trevi Fountain. But to learn this gives you a completely different insight into each of these cultures. So I think that it changed my whole life, and I was never the same again.
So you began moonlighting, doing movie reviews, which were like hidden under Bombay Port Trust ka.
Yes. I wasn't moonlighting. I think it was sunlighting, if there's such a word. Yeah. So I was hired. So it's funny because I was never. Technically, I'm a film critic, but I never had a visiting card saying I'm a film critic because no one ever hired me for that. They always hired me for something else, and this is what I did because it was my personal interest. I love the movies. So, so while I was doing a regular job writing reports and features and editorials and stuff in the Times of India, I also saw a lot of really lovely movies, and I said, hey, you know what, nobody ever reviews these lovely things, because if you're a critic, even today mostly, you can only do the latest, whatever, the Friday release is what you'll see, the Bollywood films or Hollywood films, but there's a rich Indian cinema makes films in, who wants to guess how many languages? Would you like to take a guess, sir? 30. 30? Yeah. Cold? Actually, kind of warm. Yeah, well, actually 42. This year, 43 languages. So India, in this one country, we make films in 43 languages and dialects, which no country in the world has. Like all the other cultures are monolingual. All of France makes films in French. All of America, Hollywood, makes films in one language, just English. So they're all single language. And in this one country alone, we make films in 43 languages and dialects. So a lot of them, like Konkani does, like my mother, we don't even have a script, right? It's a language. So we're always stealing other people's scripts. Like my grandmother would write in Kannada, or my mother would write in English, or I would write in English. We don't have even a script. So there are rich, there's Tulu, there's Maithili, there's Kodava, there's Shedde from Arunachal Pradesh, there's Kok Barok from the Northeast. These are languages we haven't even heard of, right? And there are whole films being made practically every year, and we don't know them, we don't access. And I was lucky, so there would be, for example, the Mumbai Film Festival. So I'd go and see, and I said, these fantastic Marathi films, these fantastic Malayalam films, these brilliant Bengali films, like why don't people know about them? Why doesn't everyone know about these wonderful films? Why are we only running after Bollywood? Of course, Bollywood is fantastic, but what about all this run? So I started writing about them, and I wasn't the critic, so I could write about whatever I wanted because, I'm doing it on my sunshine time. But it was really fun because somehow one day I kind of won the national award for best film critic.
So she won the national award for, it's an actual award, huh? National awards are actual awards, not the Filmfare awards and the other awards which are like, So how did that change your life after winning this award? People, first of all, I think were quite surprised that you won the award.
Very. Yeah. Because I said, they were like my close friends sitting right next to me day and night for like 50 years. And they said, yeah, we love you, but why did you win this award? They had no clue because these articles were being buried in some, some pokey corner after 1,000 ads. So nobody knew them, and I wasn't like showing off and telling people because, it was my main stories were, so I had my own column actually on the Sunday paper, etc. So those were the stories that people look forward to that. So this was just like my personal interest. So I didn't really tom-tom it at all. So they were also quite surprised. And I think, so my life changed very quickly after that because I got invited on the jury at the Cannes Film Festival. Yeah. And then jury at the Berlin Film Festival and jury at the Venice Film Festival. So these were like really huge things which I would have liked my mentors to get before me, people who taught me things, but can't complain. So I think when you follow your heart, I think the universe just gives you a lot of things that you had no clue is supposed to come your way, and it just, so very great.
What is the thing you do as a film curator, as a critic? What happens actually at this Berlin Film Festival and the Cannes? What happens over there?
Yeah, so I'm actually South Asia consultant to the Berlin Film Festival and Dubai, but last week the festival shut down after I think more than almost 15 years, 14 or 15 years. So what I do, I see hundreds and hundreds of films in different languages in every Indian language. So the language is not important. Usually everyone has subtitles so you can tell. And I pre-select the best Indian films, and I make sure that the selection committee at Berlin or Dubai where I'm working, that they make sure that they see these. So then after that, it's really the merit of the film. Because India makes 15,000 films in a year.
15,000 films?
15. Like on an average, like most countries in Europe, maybe 80, maybe 60, maybe 120. Like Hollywood makes barely 600, 700. China makes about 600 too. And we make 2,500 feature films every year. Wow. 2,500. Like so many, like Hollywood is actually, in volume, we make way more than them.
Right.
They make more money than us, but, so it's an extremely rich and diverse film thing. So what I do is I pre-select the films, I look at vast amounts of trash, vast amounts of it, and I select the best ones, and then I make sure that I recommend them to the festival. So then it's the merit of the film. So some of them might get selected, some not. But then it's really a great privilege, I feel. Really, it's something I'm grateful for, that I can have a chance to make a real difference to someone's career. Some small Marathi guy or some Malayali guy or a Bengali guy who's making a wonderful film, but he doesn't know how to do PR, and he's not cool at talking and schmoozing and networking. So it's thrilling for me to be able to give him this chance to, because not everyone's good at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's thrilling for me to give an opportunity to somebody on such a big international platform that totally changes their life and their career and how they see themselves. And it's just very thrilling for me to sit as an audience in this completely international setting where there's people from all over the world and the best filmmakers from everywhere in the world, and that our films are up there among them. So it's just, I feel insanely proud as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. So do you have any mentors who guided you?
Oh yeah, lots. So Amrit Gangar is somebody I am deeply grateful to. He's a film scholar and historian, and a film critic and a curator. And he, when I was young, he used to have a wonderful film club called Screen Unit. And so that's where I learned what great cinema was all about and what made a film great, right? The basics of, so he, in those days, he took so much trouble, I cannot believe it. So he would carry these huge cans, because in those days we had 35mm reels. They all, were like kilos and massive things in tin cans, and he would organize them from, go to the Russian consulate and Chinese consulate and either and organize those and beg them, I guess, please give us your hall, I want to screen it. So we pay, I don't remember paying any fees, which is a society. So we learned such a rich education that normally you'd go abroad to get a great education, or go at least to Pune, to FTI. To get a world-class education in world cinema. And we got it for free, for nothing. And he would make these real, in those days, those cyclo-style notes. Anyone knows what is cyclo-style notes?
Yes.
Okay. So he would sit and type these out on a stencil and do this all himself. And he'd have little interviews with the director or little reviews. He'd distribute them for free. So much trouble he did for love of just cinema and just sharing the joy of what he loved with others, which I just find so generous, actually. There's Maithili Rao, and there was a wonderful critic called Iqbal Jalani. Both of them are fine critics. And Iqbal Masood was his pen name. And they were really fantastic critics. So they would write not only a review of a film where, the direction is great, the story is lovely, the actress is nice, but the actor is not, cinematography, this is like technical, tuck. But you learn so much about life. So you would have reference to, say, the status of women, like if it's a women's issue, they'd say, women in Jane Austen were like that, and are we really modern now, or whatever, or about the caste system, or about Dalits, or about politics, about Hindu-Muslim relations, or just great literature, just reading Marathi literature, Kannada literature, Malayali literature, and how a lot of film that draws from literature, right? So you learn so much by reading one review. And it was about so much more than the film. So they taught, I think in a kind of Ekalavya sense, I always consider my mentors because I learned so much reading their reviews.
Yeah. What kind of genre of movies you love?
Sorry? Genre movies? Everything. I think by instinct, I like more the independent art house movies. I like Bollywood once in a while. I mean, I see Bollywood all the time. But I think what I love might be maybe 5 or 6 movies from Bollywood in a year, because I see hundreds and hundreds of films in other languages. So I can choose. I don't have to see every movie that comes out. But also, all the other cinemas, like Tamil has a really rich mainstream. They have their own big stars and big, fan clubs, Rajnikant and all. He beats a lot of most Bollywood heroes, hollow stars. They're like way bigger. It's just that we don't acknowledge. Now suddenly it took like after a long time when Bahubali came, saying, what is this thing that came out? Telugu cinema, what? And when you look at it, it's the kind of technological expertise, just imagination, just creativity that Bollywood is completely incapable of after 100 years of filmmaking. Now, can you tell me a single film, a single Hindi, a Bollywood film that could match what Bahubali or Bahubali 2 did? I'm not saying just technology, it's not just money and technique, because that's machines, it's using it well, but just the imagination, the storytelling, the creativity, which is assisted by all that technology, right? I don't think, and then just just that commitment. You talked of commitment a while ago. You know, you take 5 years for hundreds of people giving one film, 5 years. It's a level of commitment I'm not sure that Bollywood is yet capable of. There might be, but we've not shown it so far. So there's a lot to appreciate in what's happening all over India.
Okay, controversy. Film reviews, real or rigged? How can you make out?
I think the audience is very smart. It's way smarter than we credit them for. And I think you may not actually have a clear-cut reason, but I think instinct is a very powerful thing. And I think you can make out when people are childlike, surely. You can and I think you can surely make it. So a lot of people, I mean, most of us would have some favorite critic or somebody they follow. But I think people read a lot of reviews, but will follow actually, in action, follow maybe only one or two. Like you might have, do you have any favorite critics you follow? No? You, sir? You? No. No. So how do you choose to see movies? You just, because you like a star, how do you decide to see a movie or not? Sorry?
On the character, like Akshay Kumar.
Correct. So you follow, if your favorite stars there, then you act. And you, do you have any other way that you choose to see a movie other than a star?
The story, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
The reviews and the story sounds interesting.
Right. But you don't have any critics that you go by at all? Because, sorry?
Before going for a movie, I have a look at Rajiv Masan.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So you can tell, I think over the years when you read a bunch of critics, if at all you do, you can kind of tell who are the chalu ones and who are the really good ones, and those who have integrity. So you don't actually know whether somebody is cowing paisa or not, but you have an instinct and you can tell, right? So this weird thing in Times of India, so a critic here would be writing the review, he'd give it a bakwas review and think it was complete trash, and the stars, 5 stars would be faxed from Delhi. So you'd have a complete a review that tears the movie to shreds, but it is 5 stars. And pardon? I'm not taking any names, but I'm saying this is a system, and I don't think it's to do with an individual. It's to do with whoever is in that position, because this is how you get compromised. So the person who's a film critic of Times of India, whoever it is, irrespective of what decade and who the person was, is responsible for getting the stars to the Filmfare Awards night. I'm saying, boss, I mean, what kind of a critic are you going to be, right? So it's irrespective of who was there. So actually, when a certain critic left, everybody was saying, why don't you go and become the next, you've been there for so long, you should be the next film critic. And I said, are you mad? Are you MAD? Like, why, for me, in my personal opinion, that position was compromised. It had nothing to do with the individual who was sitting there and acting. It's the job description that was compromised. So everyone makes the best of whatever they want to work with.
Film censorship and cuts, your take?
I think films should be classified and not censored. I think there are adults in this room who have their own heads, and I don't think we need a nanny state to tell me, you naughty girl, you should not see this scene. I'm saying, boss, what is this shit, right? I mean, come on, right? We're adults, so I think if you've crossed 18 or 21, you can vote, you can marry somebody, but you can't see a scene that a kissing scene that X person thinks you should not be seeing a kissing scene. But you can marry and procreate and have children and have sex, but you can't see in a movie somebody kissing. It's like, or somebody smoking. I mean, I've seen scenes where a woman is smoking and that scene was cut because, oh my God, women can't smoke. So this is a kind of lunacy that goes on. And I think, it's pretty much a good idea to treat adults like adults. So I think it's a very good idea to classify films.
Like your R rating.
You have whatever. You have adult rating, you have PG 13 plus, so a 13-year-old goes with parental guidance, or kiddie films, or porn films. I think it's a great idea to have porn films, because I'm assuming, I don't know, but it's very likely that if people see porn films, hopefully they'll harass women a lot less, because I think this country is extremely obsessed by sex and extremely repressed, and I think this combination is fatal and horribly affecting women, because I think sex is on a lot of men's brains all the time, it seems. If you go by the number of sexual harassment cases or rapes or marital rapes that are going on, it seems to be in the brain all the time, but we can't see it in our movies and we can't talk about it. Yeah. But there's such extreme repression and this complete, absolute explosion of completely contradictory things. And look at our population. They didn't come from 2 marigolds nodding at each other, right? If you have 1.3 billion population, lots of activities going on, which you're not supposed to see in the movies. I just think it's like so local.
Okay.
I mean, what to say?
Okay. Netflix, will it kill the cinema?
Tough one. Tough one. So I think the latest thing is that so they've kind of pulled out of the Cannes Film Festival because they had a big fight about. This was where the big explosion happened, the political explosion about whether films can be allowed or not. And they said you have to release at least in French theaters because the French are kind of Puritan and they like to see films in the theaters in a proper way. So they felt, okay, you can release online, but at least French cinemas, you show it and then you go online because of course it's a dhanda, right? They said, FO, so their films are not. But I think I don't think online can be avoided. I think that's the future. And I think everything's, as you came earlier, everything's going onto mobiles and online. That is the future. So I think it's hard to resist, but I don't like to spoil my eyes, so I'm quite old-fashioned. I'm very grateful. So I actually, because I'm also a critic, so I get to see every other week, I get invited to to press previews of films, right? But I'm so grateful every now and then to not, if I can't go to that or I'm traveling, I'm so grateful to just pay $100 or $80 and buy a ticket to go and see it in Gaiety Galaxy. I adore that cinema because you have real people who have paid money to buy tickets and their response is really honest and they're like, full-time CT bajayeng the minute Salman has entry scene. And there's, even like a Marathi movie like Time Pass, people are just dancing in the aisles. It was wonderful. Whereas critics are like, busy judging and how many stars to give it tomorrow, or this horrible thing of live tweeting. Like this movie has just begun. The credits are just coming. Already I think, oh God, I think it's so boring, this film. I can't wait for it to finish. You're already tweeting, and I'm saying, what kind of a critic are you? It's not even begun, right? So I think there's a lot that's not great about the film profession. So.
Okay. So, I&B Ministry, boon or bane?
I'm not getting to that one. Let's have a beer instead, and then you can ask me maybe. I don't know.
Okay. So, you can see online what she talks about that. Okay. Quick gun, Sam, one witty answer. Hollywood.
Bollywood any day.
So, next question was Bollywood.
What?
One word for Bollywood.
Too limited.
Too limited. Achhe din.
Dicey one.
I see. Okay, which platform are you comfortable with and how do you use the same?
I'm such an old-fashioned goat. A lot of my students have been bugging me, and one of my students set up a Facebook account and he took 6 months. The poor fellow was so patient. This is your profile and that is your page. And then he made me write 5-6 points. Why is this different? Why is that different? It took me a long while. So now after very loving coaching from these fellows, I do Facebook and a bit of Twitter. And LinkedIn, I think one of my students has put my CV and it's kind of going in outer space. I haven't looked at it in a million years. I think there's some numbers that keep popping, but I haven't looked in a long time. I think when the scene gets bad and I need work, that's when I look at it. But as of now, gratitude to the universe. I have work for now. So I haven't, I think I'll link in only when you need to link, right? Why bother otherwise?
My request is still pending,
Was it? I'm sorry. So it's nothing personal. I don't look at it at all. So, but we're linking here. Why do you need a machine when you and I are here in this room? Like, why do you need a machine?
Hobbies and family. Tell us about your family.
Family is my sister, my older sister, whom I'm insanely proud of because she had a top banking job for like much of her life, for decades and decades, like Vice President Citibank was that. And she just gave it up on fine day to do flower arrangement.
Meenakshi, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
And really enjoyed it over there.